2025 was a defining year for human resources and leadership globally. Leaders were asked to navigate complexities at scale, rapid technological changes, evolving workforce expectations, and economic pressures heighten leadership's accountability. How prepared is your HR and your senior leadership team for what lies ahead? Through our flagship program, the HRBP MBA Masterclass, the Symphonic C-Suite Leadership Development Program, and our Future Leaders Development Program, we help leaders and executives move beyond operational excellence into strategic impact. We invite you to connect with us at Strategy Focus Group as you shape your 2026 roadmap. Thank you for your trust, and we look forward to working with you in 2026. Thank you very much. Good morning, good evening, depending upon what part of the world you're in. If it's Friday, it is the CEO series, where we explore career journeys, the trajectories, the detours, the right, left turns, and U-turns along the way. Our guest today is a good friend, Hasan Ahmed, an international transformation leader and executive coach with over 25 years of experience across BAT, British American Tobacco, and Coca-Cola, CCI, host of great companies. He has led large-scale cultural and leadership transformation across global markets and now advises senior leaders on aligning strategy, governance, and culture to drive sustainable performance. Always remember, behind every title, a story worth telling. And with that, I say welcome. Hasan, how are you, man?
Thank you, Ron. Hi, everyone. I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm good. I just got in from Dubai. That's a whole nother story, but I'm here in New York now. I'm New Jersey now. So glad to have you as a guest. So we normally start our session focusing on you as a global leader. So take us back to the very beginning to where you are now, leading all of these large efforts across the globe, executive coaching, and all those kinds of things. Walk us through that journey.
Okay. Look, Ron, I did my MBA from Maastricht School of Management, came back, started as a management trainee with British American Tobacco back in 1996. 2 years management trainee program, global program. So very early on when I was a management trainee, the company needed to go through a massive turnaround because the business wasn't doing good. And the morale and the people dynamics were not good either. So they started with the transformation and I put my hands out to become part of it. And soon after graduating from the management trainee program, I was picked up to lead the culture and people side of this transformation, which was a massive experience for me. So I think from there on, I became very passionate about the culture change and leadership. And if I look at all my next step, this remained a constant component of whatever I was doing. From there, going into the plant HR and transforming our union relationships to Middle East, where I then moved into startup in Iran, small team, 5 people going out, first foreign direct investment since revolution, a lot of transformation work was there, a lot of commercial thinking was there. Then I came back to Pakistan to sustain that cultural change that we started. From there, then integrating South Asian markets into one business unit. So 3 different markets, 3 different cultures, management styles, integrating them into one business unit. From there, I went into the global role. So I went to London, spent good 4.5 years there in the global roles, a global project around focusing on changing the mindset of top 250 people across the globe, then transforming learning and leadership. So this whole journey of good 15.5, 16 years with BAT was one transformation after another. Wow. And then I moved into consulting for a bit, and I thought I would be continuing with it. And Coca-Cola CCI came back and said, we need to transform the culture and leadership. And I got excited. I thought maybe, okay, so it's an in-house consultant with a lot more autonomy and authority in the company. So I joined them. I did HR transformation there in terms of culture leadership. From there, I moved into sales and then an international M&A that I did. So I ended up spending good 8.5 years with them before moving out back into the consulting, training, and coaching space. So I think I realized that I'm most energized when facing big challenges and ambiguity. So I don't seek stability anymore. I seek challenge and impact. That's who I have become.
Yeah. You know what? I'm doing this because of the fact that that's what I love. I tell people that I work with, look for challenges, look for problems inside of the organization, get involved in solutioning, and you find solutions. Your career will grow. You'll make a larger impact. All those kinds of things can come about as a result of that, as opposed to finding a safe spot and you just coast along. Because eventually, my thought is, eventually you're going to be bored out of your mind.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So challenge keeps you going.
It keeps you going. But one of the things that I found interesting, culture is at the top of the food chain today.
Yeah.
Culture was something that kind of anchored you. Said, you know what? You said you held up your hand, and you began the process of anchoring that culture initiative. Even before it became a cool thing, now all you read about is culture, the dynamics of all of that. What did you see? What piqued your interest as it relates to culture during that era?
So my basic learning into culture, I still consider myself a student in culture because you never become a master in this topic. Every day you learn something new. I learned from great leaders. I learned from some consultants, and I learned a lot from my team around me. So what I see is that very often companies focus a lot on the top 2 tiers of culture. In terms of how the company looks like, how the leaders look like, how do they behave, and then what is our vision and value statement, put it on the walls and talk about it, and that's it. This doesn't change the underlying assumptions that people carry, right? So that has to change with a lot of informal actions that you do as leaders. How do you change the stories in the company? How do you change the myths, symbols, rituals? And that's what I experienced in my first this transformation of BAD Pakistan, and I could see the impact. So a lot of leaders go in and they want to change the culture. They would change the leadership team as well. We didn't do that. We saw the same team transforming and coming out with a new set of behaviors and really believing in it. But for that, their belief system had to be changed. Their underlying assumptions had to be changed, and this is the right thing to do. So it takes a lot of effort, but when people believe, their behaviors change. When their behaviors change, results change.
Where did you learn that? I know. So I'm going to say this as it relates to higher education. There may not have been a course on culture dynamics during the time you were pursuing that MBA.
Yeah.
Cultural Dynamics 101, 102, whatever it was.
Yeah.
But that was something that you picked up along the way. Where did that come from?
So Ron, I was learning. I was seeing, I was trying. I was learning from the leaders, and we were seeing the impact of various initiatives. What impact does it have? A lot of it came later when I started reflecting that, what was the impact on people and their beliefs when we did a certain initiatives. So a lot of that on the hindsight reflection brought my learning, and then I became more curious and inquisitive. And I would apply those when I moved into the global roles, when I moved into other roles as well, how this cultural transformation should be led. So I think a lot of it is learning as you go. And then later on, I learned more about it. I went to Oxford after my BAd experience and primarily learned about cultural change and leadership. So that was to see whatever I've learned, how can it be applied across various industries.
Wow. Well, so, in our discussion, You've had so many roles, responsibilities. Is there one bright spot in that journey that you look back on, you're particularly proud of, that I did the right thing here?
Uh,
Would there
I
be
think,
one? And it could be two, whatever. Or maybe none.
yeah. Okay, I think I initially talked about the transformation of BAT Pakistan because that kind of changed my own internal belief system around culture and leadership. So that was a starting point. I saw that culture and leadership are the biggest levers for business growth, turnaround in any company, and not all the businesses or most businesses were making use of it. So that was the starting point. But I will talk about briefly uh, the experience at Coca-Cola CCI because that came after uh, experience with BAT, a couple of years of consulting experience. So when I went into Coca-Cola CCI, taking up the challenge of transforming culture and building leadership to support it, I had to apply all that I had learned in the context of that particular company. So I think that experience I really enjoyed. In that, when we talked about culture, we designed and delivered Values Play Shop, taking 2,800 people through that experience,
Wow.
which kind of, took the values through their belief system and they started believing in it, and it had a huge positive impact on the behaviors.
Mm,
And whenever you talk about the cultural transformation, it has to be supported by the leadership.
yeah.
So we took the leadership initiatives, involved wider set of leaders like community of top 150 leaders to really drive that culture change and embed it further.
Mm,
Last bit, I would say that having done that for good 4.5 years, I moved into sales. So I really wanted to test the hypothesis that does culture really better in a numbers driven environment?
yeah.
And as you know, sales is completely different. They thrive on adrenaline, on targets,
Yeah.
on incentives, recognition.
Yeah.
And the answer was overwhelming yes,
Mm,
right? When pressure rises, culture becomes a stabilizer.
mm,
When targets are missed, leadership determines whether they will let the morale collapse or resilient rise.
mm.
So I could see those dynamics of culture and leadership could hold the team together when things are good, of course, but when things are not going good.
Yeah, I'm laughing because my first job out of university was working for IBM in sales, and they sent you away for 1 month, and you had to get up every day and sell. So, but one of the things one of the key learnings that always comes back from that is one of the older guys who met every sales target, who didn't stress out on anything, the kind of a guy who walks around with a toothpick in his
Yeah,
mouth, hanging out of the side of his mouth, the wisdom guy. And he said to me
yeah,
one time, he says, "Let me tell you something, kid." He said, "The sale doesn't begin until the person says no. That's when you figure out who the salesperson is."
yeah,
I never
yeah.
forgot that. And even in
That's true.
executive presentations, you look for the people that's not buying it. That's when your abilities come in to either get that person on your side or make the sale or whatever it is. So our life is selling ideas is about sales.
It
Mike,
is.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, that's true. It is.
So if you
No.
so that was a bright spot. What was a chapter during that time that you look back on that maybe you weren't so proud of, if there was one, or you want to share?
Uh, okay, I think in terms of the challenge, when I moved from uh, heading South Asia area HR to the global role, that transition was massive, right? So think about it because when you're in the markets or region, you're very close to the operations. You're seeing the impact of your actions pretty immediately, and you have a lot more control and authority. When you go into the global roles and your impact is like 60,000 people, 180 markets, but then everyone is a stakeholder, everyone has a perspective, everyone defines success slightly differently. So I think that was a big transition and big challenge because unless you create a very strong common picture of success across all stakeholders, even if you deliver something, some people may view it as a success, some people may not view it as a big success. So I think I learned through that experience, initially a bit frustrated as well for a number of months that, not really delivering anything, but engaging stakeholders, shaping up this global initiative, but I'm not delivering anything. What I learned after that is that speed without alignment creates resistance. So how do you balance between speed and alignment? So I think that was one big learning that I carried with me later on in terms of how do you clarify expectations early on, the balance between global and the local realities, and how do you engage and communicate endlessly in these roles.
Okay. Quite a journey. What were anchors? When I say anchors, who would you say was influential during that journey? Mentor, coach, family member, whatever it is. What was that anchor that kept you grounded, or you could always go back and get some in those moments? Walk us through that.
I think my family has been a big foundation in terms of the sport, particularly my father. So, my father instilled values that shaped up my personal journey, my life, and career. And now I think about it, a few of the basic values that he talked about even before we entered into the corporate life: trust everyone, respect everyone, see the good in everyone. If you start seeing the bad things, then you will find many, but see the good in everyone. And let integrity lead the way. So I think these 3-4 things that come to my mind. And he often used to say that money and everything else follows the respect you earn in your professional life.
Ooh.
So I kind of that those things stuck with me throughout my career. And these basic values, basic human values, help me not only in one country but in different roles, with a new set of leaders, with new set of people, wherever I moved. I personally believe that these values help me to kind of gel in with that, navigate and gel in with that environment.
Yeah, you mentioned understanding in different countries, and one of the key learning points for me, coming from New York, the New York area, and going into I lived in Saudi Arabia for a while, and now I live back and forth between Dubai, is understanding various cultures and how do you navigate cultures. Cultures inside one organization is totally different than cultures in another organization, because the majority of my work is based on consulting. How did you pick that up? You come from Pakistan, you went to university, you worked in UK. When did that kind of sink in to say, you know what, I have to navigate a little better, or you had some learning moments, or what?
I think first thing was that my father had studied, has done his master's from Australia, done his doctorate from USA in those days as well. So, we were aspiring to have those international kind of journeys as well. So when I went for MBA in Master's School of Management, in my master's class, we had about 30 to 35 different nationalities, and I simply loved it. So that was kind of eye-opener, the power of understanding the Latin American culture and the Eastern European and the European. And there was so much learning. You could see a lot of commonalities, but you could see that there are a lot of strengths that you could pick up from the other cultures. So I think after that, I became a passionate traveler as well. So for personal holidays or for professional career, I have never hesitated to go into a new place, new culture, new country. And I'm hoping one day I will get to, the 100 countries that I've traveled. So still on the way.
I understand. I saw a recap. I use this app called TripIt, and they showed last year, I was at 50 different countries or whatever. That's what I never would have thought that. But I love travel as well as you. But again, the learning that comes from that. So let's walk back and talk about leadership. So you come out of university and you've got all the university knowledge, which may not translate to the real world. What was the leadership kind of the first team that you managed, and that transition to manage global teams? Was there a learning point in between there? Or let me put it this way, has your leadership style changed, which I know it has, from those initial days to what it is now? And what was the learning behind that?
Yeah. So I think one thing that I very quickly had to pick up is that when I joined as a management trainee, a lot of our senior people were kind of, had put in a lot of number of years of experience in that company. So I got to manage people with a lot more experience. When I was given this responsibility of leading the culture change, we had very senior people in that team as well. So I think that was the greatest learning, and you don't get that learning in the college, right? So in college or MBA doesn't teach you. So you land there and then start experiencing it. I think that was primarily the biggest starting point for me, where I started learning how to manage a very diverse set of people, right? I didn't have experience. I didn't know the answers. I was very, very curious and very, very ambitious and passionate, right? Keen to learn. In this culture, respect mattered. So I could give a lot of respect to the seniors for their experience and age and everything. So which will help me, connect well with them. So you kind of, in the context, you see what works and then connect with those people. And if I consider now, I think over the years, probably with all these multifunctional and multi-market experiences have taught me and broadened my experience in terms of my leadership is more commercially grounded, more globally aware, and more deeply empathetic, I would say, because I, having gone through various markets and functions, I see the other people's point of view. Our professor in Oxford said something which has stuck with me, that everyone acts according to a logic that may not be your logic. So we got to be patient and understand the logic. So I think that has come over time in my leadership. In the initial phase, it was a lot more passion, a little bit impatient, ambition, drive, to now being more empathetic, being more humble, more commercially astute and globally aware.
Yeah, so that's kind of your recipe. You put a little here, and you try it, and the final product comes out. So let me throw a scenario in. If you're speaking to younger MBA students that are just coming out, all fired up, MBA degree, ready to go out and change the world, what are some key pieces of advice you would give them besides calm down?
Okay, so I think it's really about believing in yourself. Believing in yourself. When I work with a lot of young team members in my team or otherwise interact with them, they have a lot of ambitions, but then they are sometimes not willing to take risk. Oh, if I go for a cross-functional move into another function, that may slow down my, race for the next grade or whatever. So they're thinking vertical career progression all the time. This is a marathon. This is not a sprint. Yeah. So I think they got to believe in themselves and take risks, accept challenges. Accept challenges where they don't feel comfortable. So when you operate out of comfort zone, that's where the biggest learning is. Yeah. When I was leading learning and leadership in BAT, we did a massive research and we changed the career model in the company. It was based on the foundation that higher the challenge, higher the development for the individual. So That mantra I always kept with me, and I pass it on to the youngsters as well, that don't be afraid of the challenge. So there is no comfort in the there is no growth in the comfort zone, but there is no comfort in the growth zone as well. So keep that.
Okay.
Then whatever you believe strongly, say so. So be it your values, ideas, don't hesitate. Don't be afraid. So bring it out and share with other stakeholders.
Okay.
And finally, one thing that comes to my mind as well, through this race, do not ignore your health and relationships, especially in the first 10 to 15 years of your career. Many people end up doing it.
Yeah.
I at least did initially for 10, 15 years,
Yeah, I could write a dissertation on that one. But thank you for that. So I'm going to flip that, and now you're speaking to an audience of senior level leaders, C-suite kind of people. What advice would you give them? Because the workforce dynamics have changed, innovation and disruption is a constant today. What advice would you give them? Because you know as well as I the stress that they're having at that C-suite level. What advice would you give them?
One thing that I see in my work as a coach, also in my corporate experience as well, when people get to the senior level, they sometimes start feeling lonely. But it's not because of the environment, it's because of them. So you don't have to be lonely. So one advice is, don't be afraid of sharing your vulnerability, what you don't know, right? Share it with people. And don't make yourself lonely. It doesn't have to be that way. So you always have people in your teams that will give you the right advice. It's up to you that how do you take that advice, but don't close those channels. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I see. The other thing I would say is that investing time and effort in developing the talent that you believe in is the most satisfying thing in your life. In my 28 years of association with the corporate and consulting, I may have forgotten many successes, achievements, but I haven't forgotten anyone who invested their time in my development. So that's the biggest thing that leaders could do. Thirdly, focus on the culture. I can't say less.
Yeah.
When you create that environment where people do not operate with fears, with the hierarchy, with the bureaucracy, they give their best. That's when you get the full potential out of them. So my favorite CEO in the early days, who helped me learn all these lessons around culture and leadership, Godfrey Thoma, he came up with this definition of culture. He said, an environment where an ordinary person gives extraordinary results willingly to the best of his or her ability is a winning culture, right? And that definition has always stuck with me. So as leaders, you create that environment for people.
Regardless of the level, the impact that comes about as a result of that. Yeah. This is what I was reading an article the other day, and it was talking about culture, dynamics, and all these things. And they were focusing on this, they were focusing on an HR department. And I'm like, dude, HR department, it starts out here. Have the conversation there. The importance of that. You're talking about organizational health. That's going to come from the communication strategy that comes down throughout the organization. So if it starts from here, if I were to, I always say, if I were to stand outside of a gate I say a gate, people coming out from work and was interviewing people, said, can you describe the culture in working at your organization? What do you find passionate about it? I said, the vast majority of people would give a blank stare to that. Because of the fact it doesn't trickle down the way that it should, because it has to start from here. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, it does start from the top. And what I've seen is that, walking the talk is so powerful because people do not believe in the words, but they do believe in the actions that you see from their leaders as well. So it's so critical that you not only say and set the tone for the culture, but also practice that day in and day out. Leadership is not easy, Ron. Leadership is not a privilege or title or a rank. So leadership is, you have to earn it every single day. You earn it with what you say and what you do. So I feel that it's not easy, right? People could hide behind the operational results and KPIs, but the full scope of leadership is everything. It's your responsibility towards people, to your shareholders, to your communities. It's much broader. It's not just the financial numbers. It's not the commercial KPIs.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, if you could package that as a pill to take, all our work would be done. It would all be done because of the fact that it would be able for them to understand the role that we could play inside of organizations. Now you're a board member at PSTD, an executive committee member of PSHRM. How are you contributing outside of your work to the next level of leaders? How are you contributing to that?
So I've been on the boards of both these bodies for almost 8 years now, and the reason I opted for this voluntary work was to really giving back to the profession that shaped my career. So the HR fraternity, HR community, I wanted to help them back. What we are trying to do is to elevate HR standards, but at the same time modernize leadership development and help organizations adapt to this digital and cultural transformation that is happening all over the world. So that's what we're trying to do. So management teams are doing it, and we are helping them and guiding them through the strategy in order to have the maximum impact. In this process, the good thing for me is that I learn from other leaders as well. I get to know the best practices. I learn from other leaders who are bringing in new thinking as well into this field of HR. But the biggest challenge is that HR has to push this transformation that is happening with AI, with the technology coming in. All the leaders feel the need, but HR should help them guide. It's not the DT teams which will lead this transformation. It's primarily HR who will support the leaders to create that culture where all this new technology, AI, is used to the maximum advantage of the business.
Having these roles that you've played over the years and the current work you're doing now at the two organizations you just mentioned, how do you learn? How do you stay ahead of what's going on? You'd mentioned talking, understanding from CEOs and other organizations best practices, but how do you take a step back and say, okay, it's time for me to go back and learn about AI disruption or whatever it is? What is your style?
I think my primary style would be talking to people, sharing experiences, learning from young professionals. I interact a lot. I do not do a lot of work in the tech industry, but I do interact with leaders from tech industry quite a lot because new ideas rarely come from familiar circles. So that's my primary go-to. And then the other thing is I constantly challenge my own hardwiring as well. So being a coach and the neuroscience-based coaching process, I help my clients. So I got to challenge my own hardwiring as well. So I do that. Is there a better way of doing it? Is there a new way of doing it? So I try to unlearn my old assumptions there as well. So besides picking the ideas from other speakers, from the podcast, from the articles, it's a lot about interacting with the people. Finally, Ron, I think I get constant insights into the thinking of Gen Z, new generation through my own daughter, right? Often learn from her, though she's not a very patient teacher, I must say, but I get a lot of learning from her as well. So you got to learn from all people, especially the youngsters coming in.
You know, I'm glad you mentioned that, because my daughter and I have conversations, and her take lots of time is totally different than mine. But there is so many moments that I can reflect back on.
Yeah,
So what I learned from her, just
yeah,
listening
yeah.
sometimes, and she said, "Dad, hold it for a second. You way off. You way off base." But to be willing to say, okay, well, tell me, all of a sudden, because she's now coaching me in situations,
Yeah,
so I understand
yeah.
totally. And I was in Indonesia last week, Jakarta, and I was talking with a senior leader of a major organization. I won't say which one it
Right.
was, and we had some time to spend some time together. And he was talking about his daughter and situations like that. In other words, daughter, your kids coming up, that's a different generation from the generation that we came out of, and we
Yeah,
came out of it in the era, and all that era is gone. And
yeah,
how do
yeah,
you touch base back on that? So when you think about learning, a lot of that learning is coming from younger leaders, younger people inside of our households, and all those things. So I'm glad to
that's
know
true.
that I'm not the only one that's in that that's using that model too.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. That's true. And that's very powerful. It's a safe environment to learn from.
It's a very safe environment. Sometimes it's not cool to hear that. So that you have no clue to what you're talking about. So I mean, they don't have the coaching skills to say it in a nice way. You know,
Exactly, exactly. It will be blunt on your face.
yeah. So we have a comment here from Next Gen HERE. It says, "Speaking of children, am I alone in this? They are better at telling than listening." I would respond to that they're better at telling, but our role is to listen. It's the same as that. That's a client. You want to sit and listen to their interpretation of that. We could not agree, maybe, but we try and find common ground. You kind of see that way. You see the comment there that says, "Speaking of children." A day is a step away from his desk, but I would ask him to put it up. It says, "Speaking of children, am I alone in this? They are better at telling than listening."
That's true. That's true. Yeah, they are.
Okay. Any insight from your side?
No, I mean, yeah, they are, and it's a very you can test a lot of ideas with them as well. So my daughter has just entered into the corporate field 6 months back, right after her undergrad. So it's all very new for her. But I could test a lot of ideas because when I am going and running an intervention, be it a strategy or a leadership intervention, now it will be the groups will be typically far more diverse, right? So I could test a lot of those ideas with her and get a very candid feedback from her, uh, and that I could apply in my work as well. So, but yeah, they are definitely better at telling than listening. That I agree with.
Yeah, yeah. So let me give a shout out to another guest who's always listening in, Peter Piccinini, who was a former guest. And you're talking about career journey. He started out on Broadway in New York City, and years ago, in post university, and now he's a wealth manager. So you see how things
Ah,
change, over a period of time. So we have an interesting group of people that always listen in every Friday. Looking
yeah.
back on your career, um, if you had an opportunity to talk to your younger self, what would that look like? What would that conversation look like?
I think, yeah, probably a few of the things that I would continue or would do the same way. Uh, but potentially, one thing that I said earlier, keep a more balanced approach towards life and career,
Mhm.
right? So don't compromise on your personal passion and health. And we talk about the new generation is more concerned, so that's a great thing, and that's how it should be. So that's one thing that I see. Other than that, I think I would continue to kind of take initiatives, believe in yourself, stand for what you believe in terms of your values, ideas, and go after challenge. There is no easy growth while staying in the comfort zone. So giving up is the only real failure. So I think over time, what I learned to cope up with the failures and setbacks. So if I talk to my younger self, I will become more willing and open to accepting failures very early on in my careers as well, and learn from it.
You mentioned a phrase there that I talk to younger people about sometimes, is the fact that comfort zones. They get in a job, they're afraid to step out, but
Yeah,
they're doing a job that they hate on Sunday night, they hate on Monday, but they're excited on Fridays. And
yeah,
my thought is, how much longer do you plan on doing that? You've already noticed the pattern. Is there
yeah,
anything you want to do to change that? What advice would you give people that's listening in, that they have a job, and that job is a job, but there's
yeah.
no fulfillment coming out of that? What advice would you give them about seeking that fulfillment, or just stay put, or whatever? What would that look like?
Uh, so I think two or three things. One, um, take a more balanced approach between short term and long term. Sometimes some of the youngsters are thinking too short term, right? So keep an approach like we talked about earlier. It's a marathon, right? So keep focus on what you want to get in the future as well, because the path could change, but if the direction destiny is clear, then you can reach there. So that's one thing. Don't forget to enjoy the journey on the way as well, right? So it's not just a destiny. Don't take it too hard on yourself. Enjoy the journey, make the environment, make the relationships so well at the work, in your personal life, so you uh, enjoy that on the way as well. So that's what I feel that they should focus on.
Yeah, that's one of the grounding principles of the show, is to talk about the journey. Because
Yeah,
when I came out of university, I thought it was just a ladder. I start here,
yeah.
I go here, I go here, and then later on, mid-career, there was a disruption.
Hmm.
Over here,
Hmm.
and then there was disruption. Then I moved to Middle East, and that was cool. That didn't work. The first location. Then I moved to back to Dubai, and it was all of these, the navigation part of it, that they never
Yeah,
teach you. And I don't know whether that could be taught, but based on what you're talking about now, is how do you navigate these
yeah.
this so-called thing called a career.
Yeah, yeah, it is about making those choices very carefully.
Mhm.
And I say early on, you push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're in better shape. Later on in your career, sometimes because of your personal preferences, family reasons, you are less mobile than you are at an early stage of your career. So
Mhm.
take those choices early on in your career, navigate your career, and you'll find out as well that what do you really enjoy. Because I feel that if you are passionate about what you're doing, um, then the work becomes very more enjoyable. The journey becomes very enjoyable as well.
Mhm.
So be unapologetically passionate about your work. That's what I say. So people talk about hard work, but I talk about being passionate about your work.
Yeah.
So be that. I mean, that will make the journey enjoyable, and you'll continue moving in the direction. But the more diverse experiences you gather on the way, the broader your perspectives will be.
Mhm. Mhm. Cool, cool, cool. As we begin to close out, is there any message that you'd like to leave our audience with? A key thought, that advice from a senior leader.
So so Ron, I think if I put down, because it has been asked to me earlier as well, and I came up that for me, uh, to sum it up, what has worked for me is a four P's: performance.
Mm.
First P is performance, and you got to deliver high performance. There's no easy road to it. You got to be a high performer constantly in any role that you're doing. It's
Mhm.
competitive environment, so you got to perform.
Mhm.
Second P is potential. You got to push yourself and demonstrate the potential for a bigger role, for a different leadership role. And that will be important for the company and for senior leaders to notice. Third P is passion. I talked about it. Unapologetically passionate about what you do. Sometimes my passion got me through than performance in terms of the impact and credibility that I earned. And fourth P is people. So people, how you build relationships, how you develop people. So the whole sphere around people is an important P that you start learning at an early stage of your career. You don't have to become a leader to learn about leadership, right? You can start learning it while you're a follower as well. So these 4 Ps, I think, will really help the professionals into their corporate life.
Okay, cool. So with that, I thank you for making time for us. I know you have a busy schedule, but I thank you for carving the time out to be a guest on the show. And as we close out, I want to thank everyone who joined us today, and I thank you all for always listening in. Your time and curiosity keeps our conversations alive. We'll be back next Friday with another journey, because behind every title is a story worth telling. And every story brings us closer to what real leadership is about. So like, comment, share, so that we can grow our audience. And with that, I thank you. And I want you to hang on for a minute as we close out. And thank you, everyone. And we'll see you again next Friday.
Take the CEO series with you anywhere, anytime. All episodes are now available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and major streaming platforms. It's not just an interview. It's a masterclass in leadership.